Hi, parents. My name is Mr. Epperson, and I will be your student's chemistry teacher this year. I am actually a new chemistry teacher to Fremont High School, and it's really been my pleasure to be here and get to know your students and get to know the school. So I wanted to start off just by giving you a little bit of a background on myself and who I am, and hopefully just introduce myself that way. Just a little bit about me. I really love as a teacher teaching chemistry and all types of science, but chemistry in particular, just helping students understand and deepen their knowledge really about the world around them. And I love that element of chemistry, pun intended, that with chemistry you're learning about something that is so fundamental to the entire your entire universe and your entire even immediate sphere of where you live. That chemistry is one of those things that is immediately important to everywhere that we encounter. And I'll give you an example of that that you'll do a little activity with as well in a moment. Um, Myself, I'll move my face. I have been really proud to again be a part of the staff and be a part of the science department as well. Get to know everybody, and just some of my history. I'm from this area, so not far, just from Santa Cruz, and I've lived there for my whole life. I grew up around the ocean, always loved the ocean, and actually went to school after high school to do marine science as a both a bachelor's and a little bit of a master's degree as well, though. I'll talk about that in a second. So I went to Scotts Valley High School, which is in Santa Cruz as well, and graduated there. And then afterwards went to, like I said, got my bachelor's in marine bio, but that was from Cal Poly. And then after going to Cal Poly, I decided to do some more training in marine science. So I went to Moss Landing Marine Laboratories, which is in Moss Landing, right in between Scotts Valley or Santa Cruz and Monterey, right in the middle of Monterey Bay. Fantastic learning experiences there. I loved every bit of it. It just got a little expensive after a while, and I couldn't quite see myself being a full-time scientist for the next 4 years, which was basically the term of getting a master's degree there. It didn't really quite equate to me financially, though I loved it a lot. And some of the jobs I actually had, this was me working on a boat out in the middle of Monterey Bay, and I also had a job working in San Francisco Bay. This is right around Redwood City, Mountain View area. I think that's the San Mateo Bridge in the background, and we're catching sturgeon, all other types of big game fish out there. We did that for scientific analysis, so that was really fun, and I also went all over California to do that as well. So some of my background and research experience. And then later as a teacher, I went and I got my degree from UC Santa Cruz and got my master's in education. Then I went right on to teach at Aptos High School, which is right around Rio Del Mar, Aptos area in Santa Cruz. I taught there for 4 years. I taught health, bio, and chem. So well seasoned, but eager to start it in a new environment. And so a little bit of my family here. This is my wife, Caitlin, our son, Liam, he's only a year or so in this picture, but he's 2 in a couple months. And there's a little more recent picture. We love going to the beach with him. This is, him with a bunch of sand in his hands because he's at the beach. This is us at the Henry Cowell Redwoods, and us traveling up in Oregon. So our family loves to get outside and do things together, and that's one other little tidbit that is actually relevant to you guys. I'll be taking a little leave of absence because you can't see it very well in this picture, but my wife is about 7.5 months pregnant with our second. So we're expecting her in the beginning of November. So that's coming up soon, but we'll be planning for that. Another thing I just wanted to plug here, this is a program in the summer that your student can go to, and I've done it for 2 years. I've been an advisor there, and it's fantastic. Really great opportunity to learn science and to get like kind of immersed in not only science culture, but also like the faculty and the people doing the actual research will teach your students when they're there. And so it's called Cosmos. It's at UC Santa Cruz, but they're actually at different UCs all over. But this one is at UC Santa Cruz, and there's I think 10 different, like they call them clusters, but different like groups that you can have your student apply to. The one that I always go with is the nanochemistry. We do a lot of fun chemistry experiments in the lab at UC Santa Cruz that they get to use like the undergraduate laboratory and do real, actually even like 400 level class labs. So it's really neat, and it's taught by professors, and they get to have that experience. This was a field trip we went to at NASA in Moffett Field, and then this is us in front of that giant wind tunnel, if you've ever driven past that, and that's us down there way at the bottom. And so that was a lot of fun. We got to go inside and have like a whole tour. So just a fun experience that I'd like to encourage you to look into for your student. I've also put like a link to the application on my Schoology page for the course, and I think they apply in winter for next summer. Obviously, we didn't hold it this past summer. So just if you're curious in terms of what your student will learn in this course, I'm not going to, of course, cover like all the units we study, but I just thought it important to kind of show you my philosophy a little bit on how we teach this, and kind of talk a little bit about the standards in a moment. We teach scientific reasoning and explanation as sort of like the paramount, test of a student's ability to understand and communicate what they know. So we're looking more for that as a learning outcome than just knowing a list of facts. How students can then view their world and view things they interact with as a chemist is an outcome. One of the things that we learn, and I've actually taught already, is that a chemist looks at the world in the macroscope, which is you can see things with your own eyes and touch them, and that's the macroscope. But you think about them in the microscope, or in the microscopic world. And so that's sort of the job of a chemist, is to think of things that are, extremely tiny and minute and difficult to understand, and then see if your understanding of those things can explain what is happening in front of you before your own eyes. So that's one of the outcomes. And then, so a very kind of real world outcome there. And then skills and concepts that basically prepare them for a physics course or something after this would be another goal, I think. So to get an example of what it's like in a daily class, one of the things that I've been having students go through a lot, not every day, but I've been giving them these things called science probes. And a science probe is simply just a challenge that gets you thinking about something that's usually kind of more real world. So I'd like you to try to see if you can solve this one. I'll read it here. Hannah is boiling water in a glass tea kettle. She notices bubbles forming on the bottom of the kettle that rise up to the top, and she wonders what's in the bubbles. I wonder if you've ever thought of that before. She asks her family what they think. And this is what they say. Dad says they're bubbles of heat. Calvin says they're bubbles filled with air. Grandma says they're bubbles filled with an invisible form of water. And then Mom says the bubbles are empty. There's nothing inside them. Lucy says bubbles contain oxygen and hydrogen that's separated from the water. So who would you agree with and why? Go ahead and think about that for a quick moment. Okay. You could pause it if you want to think longer. I don't want to go too long. So who's got the best answer here? Well, I'll tell you what all the students said. Everybody liked Lucy's answer. And their answer for that, I asked them, we used a Zoom poll to see who you agreed with, and so many people picked Lucy. Almost nobody picked anybody else. As an aside, one student did pick mom, but only that one student picked mom, and their defense was that mom's always right, so they had to pick mom. So I thought that was the most endearing response. But most people like Lucy. So Lucy, why do we like Lucy? Because it sounds right. Oxygen and hydrogen sound like chemistry words, and they've been separated from the water, but that's actually wrong, because when water boils, you don't actually separate the water molecule and make something new like oxygen and hydrogen from that. Hydrogen is extremely explosive, and that would be dangerous to light a match around any boiling kettle. And we all know that would be fine. In fact, the steam that comes out of it, we know it's steam. It would put a candle out probably, or put a match out. So what is the answer? It's bubbles filled with an invisible form of water. And that's called steam. And so Grandma's right on this one. So I like to challenge students with things like this so that when they're in the real world, they're looking at stuff that they regularly encounter and are thinking about that, again, like I said, in the microscope rather than in the, things that they see in the microscope, rather than just being uninformed. And hopefully that gets them thinking deeper about other things too. So how about how your student will learn this year? So I showed you an example of a probe, but more content that they'll learn. They do a lot of that collaborative work that we'll be doing, like with lab groups and things like that. But the content mainly comes from myself, of course, through either directly teaching, or I've actually been building a catalog of video lessons in YouTube where I'm sitting in the front of the camera quite often, recording like I'm doing now, and packaging that and putting that up onto YouTube. And then students will watch that not on their own time, in class time. I'm making sure that the homework load is very, very low. In fact, if your student's doing homework, they should be studying, would be one thing that they should be doing, or they should be getting caught up if they didn't quite finish. But if they're getting a lot of homework load, then, and it's from me, then that means they're not using their class time effectively. And you might ask them about that, because I don't give homework explicitly. The CK12 online textbook, this is their textbook. So if they are struggling with a concept, they can go there and go there for help, or I might just give time in class for them to work on that. Or if they need extra help, I'll give them an optional reading and they can go see that. So there's sort of like a wide variety of ways that I might help them understand a concept if they need, especially if they need extra help. The online interactive labs, PhET is one. It's a great resource. This one's free. You could even go check them out if you want. Gizmos is not free, but our school purchased it so that your students could use these fantastic online interactive labs. I think they've used them in bio before too. And then the live and recorded demos in labs. That's not just me making the videos like I mentioned earlier, but our whole team doing like a lab that's been packaged and recorded previously so that students can take data and actually do that. We've already done one lab like that before today. So those are some ways. Now, as a parent, what can you do to help your student? Now, I know you do so much. I mean, myself being a parent, we try to think of all the ways that we can help a student out. And one of the things that I would say that just seems redundant, but I know it's important, is to encourage your student to get adequate sleep. So important to keep the stress level down and everything. And I'm saying this as I'm recording it video at midnight. So I need to also follow that rule, but especially for your growing teens, please help them keep a good watch on the clock so that they get good sleep. It's kind of a little unnerving when a student comes to 9 o'clock class on like a late start day and it looks like they're just super haggard and tired when I'm wondering, what time did they go to bed? And yeah, anyway, so let's hope that sleeping schedules can get a little more normal for the students as they get still used to the school year. Encouraging your students to go to office hours and get extra help. That's a really, really good tactic for them, especially if they're struggling at all, whether they missed a day or whatever. Those office hours are super regular, 3 times in a regular week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Those are the days of the office hours. And I think Tuesdays and Fridays it's 1:15 to 2, and Wednesdays it's 1 to 1:45. So those are the same for all teachers. So they have to kind of pick who they go to, but since there's 3 times throughout the week, there's plenty of time to go see them. And then also just asking them about what they're learning. Of course, I know that you would do this already, but just asking them things that they maybe are learning in this class in particular that are interesting or new. And like I said, like if they've got a concept that they learned, like, oh, I didn't know, like we've been learning this week that water, when it boils at 100 degrees, can never get hotter than that. No matter how high you turn the burner, it will always stay 100 degrees. That's always a fascinating thing that students learn, and they like to take that with them and tell somebody about that information. And so I try to make it relevant for them, and so ask them about that and see if they're learning anything cool. Alrighty. Briefly, just to wrap up here, just want to say Fremont is a great school from a new teacher's perspective. I'm really enjoying working here. The staff, the students, the academics, and the culture has all been very welcoming, and I'm very impressed. So you guys have a wonderful program, wonderful school, and it's a pleasure to work here. Some things that are true about the current state of science education is that the standards have changed a little bit. You might have heard this. It's called the Next Generation Science Standards. So this has been out for almost a decade now, but has been implementing into schools in only the last 5 years or so. So we've been really working hard. I can tell from talking to other teachers and myself, having gone through my pre-service training and through my time working at Aptos, working a lot with basically overhauling current models of teaching courses and bringing the next generation science standards into those. To describe what it is, basically it was created by a committee of some really renowned scientists, good big names in there, but also a lot of teachers as well. And the goal was to try to make students more thinkers than simply memorizers of formulas and information and facts. Something well said by Albert Einstein is that you should never really memorize something you can look up. Don't waste your brain space on it. So I'm a big fan of still being able to memorize and recall, what temperature does water boil at 100 degrees. You should be able to know that. But if you can look up something these days on Google, really what's the point of taking the time to memorize it if you could spend more time on processing that thinking into better explanation so that you have a deeper understanding. So NGSS kind of looks like this threefold model as is kind of illustrated by this chord here. There's the main chord that is kind of driving it is the science and engineering practices, the blue guy right here. And that's really what science is, what scientists do would be these 8 different practices. And what we do in the classroom is give them, assignments that basically help them do those things. This is really tough in distance learning, just in case you're wondering. It is really hard to do this, but because it's basically holding students to a higher standard and teaching to a higher standard as well. One of the interesting things is there's actually no chemistry standards per se, because there is no chemistry component to it. It's just put under physical science. So physical sciences are kind of meshed together. And because of that, because there's no chemistry standards, we also bring in some earth science standards to it as well. So you might notice your student is studying a bit more about earth systems than you would have maybe studied, or I would have studied even in our chemistry course way back when. So a comparison to the old and new standards. Old standards would say students will know how to describe chemical reactions by writing balanced equations. And the new standard is going to say something a little more rich and complex. Using, how will they know how to do that? Use mathematical representations to support a claim that atoms and therefore mass are conserved in a chemical reaction, which is why equations balance. So that's kind of like the difference between the two, just as one example. All right, one final thing, and I'm done. I know I'm going a little long here, but this is just on attendance. Really helping us help your student. It's so important that we, not only, of course, that your students attend, but that we know what happens if somebody is not there. And what I've just been finding is that students won't be coming, and I don't really know exactly why, and where they're going or what's happening, and even if they are telling me, I'm not sure if they're telling the office. So what I would encourage you to do is just check with your student if they were able to get to all their classes that day, or if they had any trouble. And if that happens, ask them to ask you to call the office so that you can at least let them know that that happened. I know that, especially for a working parent or two working parents, and this is just more to do, but it's really, really important that as teachers, we know where your students are and what's going on. So if they've got a tech issue or whatever happens and they can't come, we got to know if they had that or if they cut their class. So try to keep us informed in that. There's the office number there if you want, 408-522-2414. And of course, that goes for planned absences as well, but just helping us stay informed on what's going on. If you're able, and of course, that goes for any other unexpected problems too, right? Tech is one, but, I got displaced by the fires personally, and we actually we got evacuated to Oregon, was where we went because that's where we have family. And so whether it's that or other things are going on at home, this is a time where we are very sensitive as staff to the needs of students, or trying to be as helpful as we can to them, but we need good communication. So if you can email us as well, just so that we have as much information to go off of, that of course is very welcomed. That was a little long, but I thank you for your time, and I really value you guys as the support network that your students need, that has just been invaluable during this really hard time. So I'm really looking forward to meeting some of you in the future, and I just want to say that I appreciate you guys for all the hard work that you do for your students, of course. So take care and have a good one.